course, we walk the talk. No, we can't just talk in a hypothetical way. So this project that we are implementing in Bharat is actually walking that talk. It is actually showcasing to the private sector how to come forward, what is it they need to do, that they can actually access and give job opportunities to the young people. At the same time, the young people come to the center, they are told how to find a job, how to navigate the job sector, and then they are matched. So it is a practical demonstration on how we make it happen. The second thing that we are very keen to invest in, and we see a lot of work happening through ILO in that, is on developing apprenticeship frameworks and on-the-job training programs. So how together with the private sector companies, we actually develop and design curricula that is speaking to the demands of the labor market. So again, that is something that is being done in partnership with the private sector. And the government has a role to play in making sure that the right policy, regulatory framework around apprenticeships is defined and is in place. Because right now in Ethiopia, you would know best, there is no difference between a trainee, an intern and an apprentice. So very often, it is expected that a trainee will not get paid or will get paid very less, or an intern is supposed to work completely free, and all these terms are very interchangeably used. So there needs to be a clear-cut definitions, there needs to be an apprenticeship framework in the country, and the private sector has to come together in developing some of these on-the-job trainings that we're doing. So, of course, we also have projects that are doing all this work to demonstrate the solutions. So it's actually walking the talk. So, of course, we're very clear that the young people today all want to migrate out of the country. So we did an assessment in 2017 at the start of this project in trying to understand the thinking behind, the thinking in the young people's mind behind migration. And it was so surprising that the majority of the young people that we interacted with and had the focus group discussions with, they all wanted to migrate. So, young people who had finished high school or were in high school were interested in going abroad and studying or working, but they would go to the West, they would go to, Americas and Europe, etc. But the young people who had not finished their schooling or who had just finished their middle schooling, etc., were keen to migrate, and they would go to the Gulf corridor. But it was really surprising that every young person was basically looking to leave the country and to migrate. And the prime reason, as we know, for that is that there is a disconnect between their desires, their aspirations, and the jobs that are being offered in the country. So that mismatch is compelling them to migrate. Now, at ILO, we are not against migration. We say migration has been going on in the world time immemorial. From the time the trade routes started, and whether it was for economic trading or it was for cultural, educational purposes, migration has happened time immemorial. So migration is a personal choice for every individual, and they should have the freedom to choose whether they want to migrate or whether they want to stay. But migration should be an informed choice. When you're in a condition where your socio-economic condition is so poor that you have no choice but to migrate out of the country, that is wrong. So we need to give options, and we need to give choices to people to decide if they want to stay in the country and participate in the job market, in the labor market, or they want to migrate abroad. And at ILO, we are completely against irregular migration, because we know that when people migrate irregularly, they are exploited, they are made far more vulnerable to trafficking and to smuggling, and more so women and children. So at ILO, we've worked very closely with the Ministry of Labour and Social Affairs in developing the overseas proclamation. Overseas Employment Proclamation. ILO worked closely with the Ministry of Labour and Social Affairs, and ILO's stance is that all labour migration should be through legal and regular channels and through bilateral agreements. So, government of Ethiopia needs to get into bilateral agreements with the destination countries, so that the young people and the women who actually migrate through regular channels. So that is something that ILO has been focusing very, very intently. But also through our project, what we are demonstrating is that if young people today have a choice, and if they know, they have information about the kind of jobs that are available and are able to compete and participate for those jobs, then they will be in a position to decide whether they want to migrate or they want to stay back in Ethiopia. You know, we're all migrants at the end, at some point of our life, right? Like you could go somewhere to study. I am a migrant in this country as an economic migrant. But as long as we are all taking informed choices, migration is fine. But then we need to have that choice. And to make that choice, we need that information. So if these employment centers and if these job centers are developed to such an extent that they are giving regular information to the young people about employment opportunities, they're giving them in trainings, they're giving them skills development that is needed to participate, then young people will also take informed decisions of whether to migrate or to stay back and work in the country. Yes, so the proclamations, the national frameworks, like even the National Plan of Action for Job Creation, these are national frameworks which demonstrate the political will of the government. So the fact that the government is coming up with these national legislations and proclamations and frameworks speaks well. It says that the government is interested in investing in its young people. Now we need to make sure that the programs that are developed and the active labor market programming that needs to happen to ensure that the young participate needs to happen in partnership between the government, the trade unions and the employers. It cannot be driven only by one party, you see. This is ILO thinking. So when these partners come together, then we create win-win situations. So the private sector has to step up its game. You know, it has to come forward in ensuring that the young people of Ethiopia today are skilled, they have the right capacities, and they're given decent salaries and working conditions and environment, which will encourage them, which will motivate them to continue to stay in Ethiopia.